Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the News Project Live. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director at GNAT-TV's News Project. Pleasure to have you with us today, as always, on Friday, September 11th. Just a quick rundown of some of the local stories we've been following or keeping track of. Obviously, the big story of this week was schools reopened on Tuesday, September 8th. And most of them, as we've reported already, are doing a mix of in-person and remote learning. And most seem to be gradually working their way back towards trying to have all the students in their buildings as quickly as they can, but aren't quite there yet and won't be for a while. We're looking at, I think, a period of at least a month or and probably more before we're anywhere close to that. And that, of course, will depend a lot on how everything goes. We don't have a kind of unfortunate outbreaks of infections. So basically, we looked around at all the schools and the BR. Talked to anyway school officials. Let's see. We'll start with the BRSU, the Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union Schools. They're opening with 10 to 20% of their students and staff in for 2 weeks, and then looking to bring in 50% or so of their pre-K through fifth graders in two cohorts or divisions. Half of the student body will be in a couple of days of the week. The other half will be in the other 2 other days of the week, and then in between will be a cleaning day at the school and also a remote learning day. And of course, when the kids aren't in the school building, they'll be learning remotely as well. Down in Arlington, they are bringing their elementary school students to the Fisher Elementary School in 5 days a week, starting off at that. Middle school and the high school down in Arlington will be 4 days in person, 1 day remote. And of course, students and parents can have a fully remote option if they want. Um, Up at Burton Academy, they're also doing hybrid learning. Students in the building 2 days a week, the other half of the student body in the other 2 days of the week, and then online learning and deep cleaning on other days. Um, Up at Long Trail School, just was up there this morning actually, talking to Headmaster Seth Winfield. They're going to use the same kind of format. They'll be splitting the students though by geography. Interesting way of doing it. North and western towns and southern and eastern towns, um, and they'll be hoping to maximize their flexibility in case of an outbreak in a specific residential area. Um, we will have a segment coming about all of this next week. Did have the chance to go around and talk to several of the education leaders of the various schools, and also had a chance to speak with Education Secretary Dan French, who many of you will remember as a former superintendent at the BRSU. Had an interesting conversation, and we'll be highlighting that in that segment that will be showing up sometime next week as soon as possible. Uh, so far, so good seems to be the watchword that all the folks I spoke with seem to be saying. But obviously, fingers crossed, and a lot of it will hinge on everyone wearing masks and social distancing and obeying all the other guidelines that we've become familiar with over the past few months. A big plus so far is that the state of Vermont as a whole has the lowest infection rate of any state in the country, and that's making the chances of reopening schools successfully much better. And one other piece of good news around that is that the return of college students to the state colleges has gone pretty well so far. That point was noted again at the Governor Scott's Friday morning press conference. Uh, so far, their experience, while not totally perfect, has been pretty darn good. Certainly a lot better than some of other colleges around the country elsewhere have been experiencing. Um, Remote learning is also an interesting part of all of this, and it's certainly come a long way since last spring when educators had to pull together that kind of on the fly really quickly and very unexpectedly. Really challenging project, and hoping to have a chance to maybe take a deeper dive into that as well in the coming weeks or so. So that's one more thing to kind of look out for. That, of course, leads us to the subject of broadband and our online capacity, which until fairly recently in Vermont kind of depended a lot on where you lived, and that's probably still the case too. Um, it's come a long way in the last 10 or so years, but there are still parts of the state and also parts of Bennington County that don't really get good broadband service. And as many of you have heard, a communications union district has been formed here in Bennington County, as has of others around the state, uh, looking to find ways to bring better broadband service to our area. But that's a really tough challenge. It's also a very expensive one, and there's the state is also trying to do what it can to kind of ramp up broadband capacity pretty quickly, um, and spend the CARES Act money that they've received. And one of the catches is that that needs to be spent by the end of this year. Um, anyway, just to kind of update you on what the local communications union district, the Southern Vermont Communications Union District, has been doing. Uh, a feasibility study has been conducted, and it's come back so far that it's probably not going to be too feasible in terms of being affordable and kind of something that's going to attract enough customers to make it financially at least even, so that it's not losing money. If it just remains a singly just a Bennington County project. The scenario that seems like it might be a little more plausible would be to merge or at least join forces with another communications union district in another county, and that would lead to Windham County, perhaps, is the most likely one. There are two groups over there that have been trying to work on the same types of project. So that's something we'll be watching out very carefully as well. At their meeting earlier this week, the Communications Union District Board uh, has sort of completed its. Well, they basically are going to go with a poll study as the first step in this feasibility study, uh, to kind of see, kind of how many telephone poles are out there that would need to be wired. The first step on kind of the building out the infrastructure. So the board approved moving forward with the pole survey with an engineering firm based in Portland, Maine, the Tilson Group, as the contractor, and we'll see that they want to get started on that fairly quickly. That will probably cost around $100,000 to do that, which is just about what the CUD got in its um grant of state money earlier this year. So really interesting and complicated problem, and one we'll be following pretty closely as well. One other minor note, and also another segment that'll be coming up next week. The ribbon was cut at the Applejack Grandstand. Some of you may have heard that that's undergone some refurbishment and an upgrade, some nice new seats there, a new paint job as well. Uh, and so we'll be learning a little bit more about what's in store for folks who come to Applejack Field to watch soccer or lacrosse games or other sporting events that might be going on there. Turning up to Montpelier, it's been a busy week this year up at the legislature, although, of course, they're not meeting at the State House in Montpelier. They're all still meeting remotely, but the state budget was approved by the House of Representatives on Thursday. They gave preliminary approval to a $7.15 billion budget bill that would fund state government for the remaining 9 months of the fiscal year from now through July 1st of 2021. And that will spend the remaining $223 million in federal funding the state received this spring through the CARES Act. Um, that bill will include funding for state colleges. As you know, some of them are struggling to stay afloat financially. They were already struggling before COVID, and that certainly exacerbated it. Also, a program to provide COVID-19 stimulus checks to immigrants in the state, and more than 30 million to help schools cover the cost of reopening during the pandemic. So that will now go on to, well, there's going to be a second vote, and we'll just to give final approval to it, and then that will go over to the state senate on Friday today for a vote there, we assume, and then on to the governor's desk. The other big piece of information was kind of interesting was that earlier this week, the Vermont House approved legislation on the so-called Global Warming Solutions Act, which would legally mandate the state to meet carbon emission reductions targets in coming years and allow individuals to sue the government if it fails to do so. By a vote of 102 to 45, the House approved the changes made to the Global Warming Solutions Act made by the Senate earlier in June, and they've now sent the legislation on to Governor Scott's desk, where the governor hasn't said he's, in so many words, he's going to veto it, but boy, the indications sure look like that might be the case. And at his press conference today, just a little while ago, the governor termed the bill problematic, was, I believe, the word he used. He has concerns about the possible liability issues and the administrative costs that will be involved in setting up the board that would oversee this. So a veto seems likely, and that would set up, shall we say, a point of discussion going forward in the election season between now and November. This has been a bill that was a high priority for the Democratic leadership in both the House and State Senate, and the governor's veto is probably not the last we're going to hear about this bill. Otherwise, in state news, one little media note. You may have already heard Vermont Public Radio, the Vermont Public Broadcasting System, or Vermont PBS TV station, have voted to merge. They announced that on Wednesday, and the merger is waiting an IRS tax-exempt status and approval from the Federal Communications Commission, but that's expected to come through fairly quickly, or at least without any kind of hitch. So pending those approval, the new organization will be set to launch on July 1st of 2021. Certainly of interest to see how that will all work out. Well, I guess that'll just about do it for today, although I just wanted to quickly mention, if you're looking for something to do this weekend, to get outside and enjoy the fresh air, weather forecast sounds pretty good, you might want to consider going up to Merck Forest for their Bio Blitz. They're having an event, I think it's for the second time in a row. I know they had it last year in 2019. I'm not sure if there was one before that. But basically, that's where you get to become an amateur naturalist, and you can head up to Merck Forest and wander around more than 3,000 acres of their property. A lot of great trails up there. And if you come across some wildlife specimens, some insects or bugs or something you're not really sure, you can whip out your smartphone, take a picture of it, and if you've downloaded the iNaturalist app, you can identify your findings. And who knows? You might find something that nobody knew was there before. There actually have been a few species discovered that nobody was aware that they were hanging out there in Rupert. So sounds like a lot of fun. If nothing else, you get to go for a nice hike and walk around the forest there, and nothing wrong with that, right? Also, I think we mentioned this last week, but just another reminder, if you're heading on your way to Merck Forest, you might want to stop by the Dorset School between 9 and 1 p.m. tomorrow. So that's Saturday, September 12th, for their Hazardous Waste Collection Day. On the Town of Dorset's website, they have a list of what you can bring and what you shouldn't bring. What you can bring is any substance with labels that say caustic, toxic, corrosive, poison, flammable, danger, warning, caution, used in an open environment. Things like antifreeze, turpentine, stains, varnishes, carburetor cleaner, creosote, all the things you really don't want to have hanging around in your garage or your basement anyway, right? So that's from 9 to 1 at the Dorset School. And just real quickly, one other programming note. Coming up, we will be having a series of interviews with the major statewide candidates for governor and lieutenant governor, have those set up. We'll be talking with Molly Gray, who's the Democratic Party's nominee for Lieutenant Governor, and Scott Milne, the Republican Party's candidate for Lieutenant Governor, over the next couple of days. We're also having conversations with David Zuckerman, who's currently the Lieutenant Governor. He's the Democratic nominee for governor, and also with Governor Phil Scott next week as well. On September 28th, mark a calendar at 4 p.m. We're hoping, this is still sort of in the planning stages, but we're pretty sure that we'll be able to do this live at 4 o'clock on Monday, September 28th. And I say that because I think last week I said the 29th. It is Monday the 28th. We're going to have a debate with the three candidates running for the local state representative district, Bennington County 4. That will include Cynthia Browning and Kathleen James, who are current representatives, and also Seth Bongartz, who's also running for one of the two seats in the district. So we'll have a conversation with the three of them. On October 7th, we also are planning a live debate with the now 5 state Senate candidates. That would include the current incumbents, Richard Sears and Brian Campion, as well as their challengers, Michael Hall, Meg Hansen, and Kevin Hoyt, who is running as an independent. More details to come on all of that. Don't have the exact time of that set just yet, but we're working on it. And I guess that'll do it for today. Thanks for being with us. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll see you again next week. Take care and stay safe.